it made it easy for her to take the two boys to have a very good education, and that was completed. I recall the sad event, and this is not a sad event today. I just want to tell us a few reminders of the realities, of life and all of that. So I remember a sad event on October 22nd, 2005. I remember waking up to the sad news, and I was watching the TV, and I saw a number of clients that I had seen within the week, passed in the plane crash. Some of you would remember. The short of it was that there were individuals in that sad event who I had managed their investments, managed their financial accounts at that time, and unfortunately, they were in that incident. Two families, I remember particularly one of them, a particular Alhaji. It still brings a smile to my face because it was very pleasant. And we had the discussion about his family, his dreams, what he'd like to do, what would the 10 years be like. When my teenage children are a certain age, I'll do A, I'll do B. Unfortunately, there were no structures. And I remember how difficult it was, but for certain interventions for the family to get the funding. And there were also a lot of influence from in-laws. And the Nigerian story. The short of it was that the widow did not eventually get most of the assets. But on a very positive note as well, in this same ARM, when I started, I remember a young lady who had come into our company, and she was meeting with a trust advisor, and some of them are here today. They'll speak to you about that later. And she was trying to withdraw money from her fund. And that was my first reality with how true the thought about legacy planning and having an estate structure really works. So this young lady was requesting for funding from a fund that her father had set up while he was alive. She comes from the Core North, a Muslim family, and he had set up a trust and had 4 wives. So on this particular day, the auntie was giving me feedback on, why they were there, what they were trying to do. The father had passed, and this was the funding for each wife, but this particular child was accessing what was there from her own mother and her own siblings. So ARM's example, and a lot of what we'll be talking about today, indicates that your last will, your testament, who gets ownership of your assets, setting up living wills, also indicating your personal wishes at the end of your life, who and how you even get personal care are very important discussions, part of what we'll be discussing today. So financial stability and preparing can allow family members to actually get the best. It's an opportunity for you to think of having a less devastating end, if you will, especially in the case of death, as I've mentioned. Another thought, and I think this is very critical, maybe very personal to me, is I think I've seen a lot of families, a lot of individuals work so hard through their lives. At the end of the day, we do not pay attention, consciously pay attention to how or what structures will prevail when we're no longer here. And even while we are here, what are the proper structures that we're putting in place to take care of our estates? And so, believe it or not, you have an estate. Everybody does. Everybody has an estate. To name a few, your estate could be your car, it could be your home, it could be your bank account, life insurance, investments. It's all part of your estate. And estate planning goes beyond your possessions. It is a step that you take during your life to really strategize and prepare for incapacity, for illness, and passing on. Estate planning is ultimately taking care of your loved ones, right? By taking care of yourself. I think if you really go through this life and you have lived to this stage, you want to actually, as a way of taking care of yourself first, do this for yourself and then for your family members. And that's the reason why we're here. So, to the event. This promises to be an engaging one. We have very seasoned professionals who will be speaking to us today, talking to us about different things. You know, it's an opportunity for you to discuss wealth transfers, what structures have you put in place, what are your considerations, ethical considerations, if you will, because we get some of those questions come up, you know, from different people. Say, I'm a Muslim, or I have this certain belief, I don't believe in this, how do I put up a structure? All those discussions we'll hold today. And I think it's an opportunity for you to engage. Please ask the questions. Ask as much questions as you can. It's an opportunity. We have different discussants that will cover a wide range of different issues that you may have. And but very importantly, I would ask you to do one thing. When they're done, take action. That is where I've seen the biggest problem. We come to these seminars, information is passed out. You know very well your own personal situation with your family. You know the intricacies, especially those of us that have complicated family structures. There's 4 wives, there's this cousin, there's this brother. You know, everybody needs estate planning, but especially you need to think about it if you have the complicated family structures. It goes a long way. So at ARM, we are invested in you for today and for tomorrow. We look forward to an opportunity to continue to work with you. Our desire really is that as you come to this event and you're part of our company, that we would help you to have a comprehensive estate plan, help you to put a structure. Like I said earlier, you need to think about the conscious pattern. You have to be conscious about how you're going to leave behind your estate if you are not here. It's a very important discussion. So once more, I welcome you. Thank you so much, and please do enjoy the event. Thank you.
A round of applause for Kai. Thank you so much for that welcome address. So moving on very quickly, before we have the panel discussion, we have a very seasoned Islamic estate planner in our midst. Her name is Mahmudat Yusuf. Mahmudat is going to have a presentation. Mahmudat is a managing partner at Mondial Solicitor, a law firm based in Ibadan, Southwest Nigeria, and she's an expert in Islamic financing. Please make welcome Mahmudat. Thank you so much. Let's encourage her by clapping for her.
Thank you, Shola. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here. And thank you so much to the ARM team for deeming it fit to invite me here to share my perspective on this important topic, structured giving and legacy planning. All right? Yeah. So I also want to stand on the protocol or the fact already established by Kai, because I think it really gives a good foundation to discussing topics that's this sensitive like this. It's a Nigerian thing that nobody wants to talk about death, but it's a reality, right? And it's how do we ensure that we create a good ending and also give something back or create a platform for estates. So in moving ahead, we'll talk about legacy planning and structured giving. So legacy planning is a financial strategy that prepares people to bequeath their assets to loved ones after their death. A company like ARM, for instance, they have different plans, different packages for trust. And in this sense, I would be discussing the Islamic perspective to these issues and how can we as Muslims benefit from these opportunities, and how can even institutions like ARM also benefit from the structure that has been established by Islam, because it's a complete way of life that talks to you about how you live your life, about worship, and also about business, and what you do, what happens to you after death. And part of it here is estate planning. That's about wills. A lot of us don't write wills. A lot of us don't want to talk about it. But at the same time, it's a reality, and it's an opportunity also to create something, bequeath something to your loved ones. So here we are making an informed decision. You are also going to be saving costs when you end up writing a will or actually creating a trust. Most times in Nigeria, where somebody dies intestate, the estate is left to manage their estate, apply for letters of administration, or if the person has a will, you have to go to the probate registry to execute that, apply for probate, and get it administered as appropriate. And it ends there. The management, the generational wealth, to the heirs, to the minors that might be left behind, nothing happens. There's nothing written down in those wills. And even in letters of administration, it could even be worse, especially where you have complicated families like Kai mentioned earlier, and the families is thrown into disarray and they're not sure how to manage that estate. So in this case now, how do we manage or how do we marry what institutional trusteeship provides and also the Islamic perspective? So in Islam, there's writing a will is compulsory, but not many people take advantage of that. Not many people really take it seriously. So it's compulsory for you to write a will as a Muslim, and as an adult that have assets and liability, it's compulsory for you to write it down. Who are the people that you owe? Who are the people? What are the things that you own, and where are they? Right. So you put it down how you want to be buried, where to be buried, and the will also, the Islamic will gives you that advantage where you can bequeath to even those that are not your relatives. Generally, you expect that, okay, in a will, your immediate family get to benefit, your children, the wife, the maybe grandparents if they are alive, right? So, but in this case now, in Islam, there's a more detailed structure on how your estate is planned. And in the case where somebody dies intestate or just writes a will, a regular will, it's just that will that's going to be. But if you have that Islamic will, you have something for your heirs, for your relative, and also for those that are not your relative. Because if somebody dies intestate or as a Muslim without writing a will, you expect that only the family would benefit. The children, the wife, or the husband, whichever way it is, the grandparents, and depending on how large that estate is, then the other levels of relatives that involved, cousins, aunts, and all of that get to benefit. But what happens to your friends? What happens to your co-workers or somebody that you admire? What happens to things that you have interest in? Maybe in charity, in hospital building, orphanages. What happens to them? Even if it were to be things that you were involved in while someone were to be alive. So you have that opportunity of explicitly stating how you want those things done when you are gone. So here in the Islamic will, you have the 1/3 of your assets that can be distributed for charities or for people that are not ordinarily your relative and ordinarily those that are your beneficiaries. They get to benefit from the 1/3 of your net assets. And I would want to emphasize that net asset. Net asset here means that all your liabilities has to be deducted before they can do anything to that estate. So in the case somebody dies, a Muslim, for instance, he dies, before anything, most times, if we've probably experienced burials of Muslims, they will state at that point where if anybody is owing this person, they should indicate, or if this person is owing anybody, they should indicate, so they can deduct all of those indebtedness from the estates before moving ahead to distribute it to the beneficiaries. So that's where you have the net asset, just like in accounting where you have the liabilities being removed from the assets. So you have the 1/3 of the net assets first removed from it, then the remaining, that's the 2/3, left to be shared according to the Islamic principles of inheritance amongst the beneficiaries, regular beneficiaries, that, I mean, the children, the wives, the husband, whichever case it is, the parents, the relatives generally, right? So next slide. Yeah. So in the Islamic will, it gives the Muslim the flexibility to impact not just his relatives, but non-relatives. And in this case now, where you are having a trust platform, or where you are having an institutional investment platform or institutional trust like we have here, then that investment, for instance, by ARM, they'll have to ensure that that investment they're doing has to be halal. Halal means permissible, right? So you don't have, if a Muslim client is coming, definitely that investment would be, that assets or investments would be for into halal businesses. You won't expect that money that belongs to a Muslim to be invested in maybe alcohol, gambling, things that are generally not permissible in Islamic business and transaction. So that is how that would be done when it comes to institutionalized Islamic option or Islamic trust and estates planning. So the essence is to create that lasting impact on your heirs and also on this society, which is quite commendable. And most times we don't have that institutional platform where these things are regulated. So I would commend the ARM for bringing this on and also creating that Islamic option for Muslim clients who generally would have left their assets or estates to the scholars that would have just managed it, and it ends there. There's nothing like a generational transfer of wealth to the minors or the vulnerables that could be in that family or their children, as a matter of fact. So in making a will, it is mandatory, like I said earlier, and there are Quranic provisions that obligates each person to do that. And one of the essence of that is also to ensure transfer of wealth. You don't die and leave the family bereaved and also impoverished, right? So now they may not be well acquainted in finance, in investments, in running a business profitably, but if that trust is there, institutional trust, I mean, then there's something for them to fall back on to say, okay, yes, something has been created by my parents and I'm a beneficiary to it. And also you have it as a religious obligation where that responsibility has been fulfilled and distributed accordingly. All right, next slide. Yeah, so the Islamic perspective, it gives that systematic process of passing down wealth from one generation to another. And there are three things. Okay, did we miss? Hello? There's a work part of it. Is it, have we passed it? Okay, I think we'll get there. Right, okay. So moving on. So here, as Muslims generally, we take charity very seriously. We take giving very seriously. But upon death, that stops, right? And whatever asset that we have, that stops. You can't acquire more, you can't give more, and you can't earn more. But the only thing that does not come to an end, according to the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, is a recurrent charity, a beneficial knowledge. For instance, somebody that is a teacher, somebody that teaches a beneficial knowledge that has been imparted, and also your children, the prayers that they do to you. So here we'll be moving on to that 1/3 aspect of your estate where you can bequeath it to non-heirs, those that are not your relatives. How do we ensure that things that are close to you, that you're passionate about, also continue? And those that are generally not going to benefit from you, those that are not your relatives, they don't have any ties to you, they also have that something to benefit from you. And that action of yours, which is just that charity that you've engaged in, continues to serve as reward we lay a lot of emphasis on that reward system that, okay, yes, you are going to benefit. God is going to reward you for that act of benevolence that you've shared to the less privileged. So how do you benefit from this and also benefit from that in the hereafter? And that's where we have the waqf in Arabic, or literally called endowment. So we have endowment, we have a lot of endowment foundation, we have a lot of trust funds going around, but do we have it, we have a structure for it in Islam? Yes, we do. But is there a lot of information out there about it? Not really. So here we are talking about that and how a platform like this gives you that opportunity to benefit and also earn that reward that you so desire, and also get the pleasure of Almighty God on that day. So literally, waqf means the locking up of a title to an own asset from disposition and allotment of its benefit for specific purpose. And one of the scholars of Islam, that's Imam Shafi, has said that it's to keep that wealth that can give benefits, keeping it in the same form while the original owner cannot consume it. So in this instance now, what we literally mean is this waqf, it can take different forms. It can take the form of you doing it before passing on, or they do it on your behalf after death. So here, it's if you are doing it before passing on, it's immediately taken away from you, and it serves as sadaqah jariyah that you have done by yourself, not somebody doing it on your behalf. You've done it by yourself, and you're sure that this thing is going to actually be done by yourself. You've seen it work, and you've seen it being executed from your estate, and it's already, it can't be transferred anymore. It can't be transferred to your estate. It can't be transferred to your beneficiaries at that point. But in a case where it's done after deducting the net assets, then the institution can decide, or you tell them which of the charities you are interested in them investing your money in. One of the hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ is that there was a companion that came to him. He was ill. That's Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas. He was ill, and he had just a daughter. And you can imagine how he was a wealthy man, and he was worried about how to distribute his estates and how his daughter was going to manage their assets. And the Prophet advised him, he asked the Prophet ﷺ that, okay, should I give to charity half of it? He said, no, that would be too much. He said, eventually the Prophet ﷺ advised him to give 1/3 of it. That's the genesis of that 1/3 of your asset. And the essence was that the Prophet wanted him to leave something to his daughter so that the daughter doesn't become poor, but at the same time also fulfill his wish, which is also providing for a charity that he might be interested in. So the principles behind waqf is that you can't transfer it. You can't, it cannot be owned by you afterwards, so your family don't come back and say, oh, my father was the one that built this mosque, or my father was the one that built this hospital. It doesn't count as part of your assets anymore. It just only counts as a charity for you. It counts as something that will serve as a reward, so to say, for you. And the good thing for doing it before passing on is that nothing can encumber it. No liability can prevent it from actually being actualized. Take, for instance, somebody dies and unfortunately has a lot of liabilities. Definitely that liability would be deducted from his estates before any distribution can be done. And if he had written in a will saying that, okay, I want a hospital built, I want orphans to be educated, a school built, or whatever charity or laudable initiative that he might have written in his will. And there's so much liability for the estates, in the estate, that it cannot, nothing is left. You know, that good intention that he had cannot be fulfilled because there's nothing left in his estate anymore because they had to first sort out his liability. That's the concept of the net asset that I mentioned earlier. So that's why it's always recommended that this WACF or endowment is set up prior to anything. So automatically, that keeps running. That charity keeps running, right? And nothing can come back and say, oh, this man actually owned this, or this woman owned this while he's alive. He had already bestowed it onto that for that charity cause, and nobody can lay claim to it. No estate can come and say, oh, it's part of my father's estate and I want to take ownership of it. No, it's already an endowment and it has already been given for that cause, and it's going to remain like that compared to you wanting them to do it after the person's passing. No, it may not work, and we have instances where notable Muslims, they passed on and there were so many liabilities for them, and the estate had to start struggling about properties. They had to go to court, challenge the probate, challenge the will, and at the end of the day, the property is not distributed as appropriate. And the laudable initiative he had, there was nobody that was going to do it because there's no money to be distributed so far, right? So, but if he had done it ahead of time, if he had embarked on it ahead of time, nobody can come back to demand for it, right? So I think I've already spoken to this here. Yeah, and essence, there's emphasis on the fact that investment, if you're having an institutional investment like ARM, it has to be in halal investment. It cannot be in something that is not permissible. So for you to know that, okay, yes, you're safe, there's that window for it, though it's a work in progress in terms of us having that structure in terms of policy and regulatory framework for it. But I think it's still commendable to have a platform like ARM do this compared to countries in Singapore, Malaysia, and Turkey that already have all of these programs or projects or endowment opportunities institutionalized, and there's already a working structure for it to become executable and actionable for interested donors. So I urge each and every one in attendance here to take advantage of the institutionalized trust platform offered by ARM as it is, and writing a will is recommended. Engaging an institution is better and keeps the family, loved ones in safer hands through sustainable wealth management that indeed leaves a lasting legacy when we are no more. Thank you very much. And I'll be glad to take questions afterwards.
Round of applause for Mahmouda. Thank you so much. There'll be an opportunity to ask Mahmouda questions during the fireside chat. So moving on very quickly, we are going to have our panel discussion. And I'd like to introduce our moderator. Is the one and only Nnamdi Okeke. A round of applause to him as he's coming on stage. Nnamdi is a seasoned trust analyst with ARM Trustees Limited. He has a broad experience in succession planning and legacy preservation. Let's make welcome by clapping for him. Thank you very much. And the next person to be introduced is Waimi Orishajafor, a consultant with Henley and Partners, a firm of professionals who render advisory services to HNI about gaining residency and citizenship in their country of choice through qualifying investment. A round of applause for Waimi. Thank you so much, Waimi, for joining us. And the next person to be introduced is still the Mahmouda Yusuf, who just had a presentation. Please make welcome Mahmouda Yusuf once again. Thank you so much. And then moving on very quickly, we'd like to introduce Shehu Idowu. He's the head of private trust business with ARM Trustees. He has a broad experience in generational wealth transfer, succession planning, and legacy preservation. A round of applause for Shehu. And last but not the least, I'd like to introduce Olufemi Olowu. He's a wealth advisor with ARM Investment Managers Business. He's the regional manager at ARM here in Abuja. Please, a round of applause for our panelists. I would like to quickly hand over to our moderator. And like I said, there'll be an opportunity for us to ask questions during the fireside chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Shola. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we welcome you to this edition of the ARM Breakfast Meeting. And again, I welcome you to the fireside chat. I just want to reiterate that for this chat, it will be engaging and it will be all-inclusive. We would like you to write down your questions because we are at the main stage where we take notes and advise on key issues. So at this session, you would ask questions that apply to you, take notes, return the questions to us, and we'll direct them to the professionals we have here to do justice. And we hope that at the end of the day, we would help you make a decision on solutions that works best for you. So once again, welcome to the fireside chat. I would like to advise the crew team to please ensure that those behind them have clear view of the podium. Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for yourselves. Thank you very much. We're happy to have you. Welcome, Sheun. Welcome, Woimi. Welcome, Femi, and welcome, Mamudat. So here we go. I'll start with Sheun. We're here. We're looking at the theme structured giving and legacy planning. Growing up, I have always known that education is the best legacy, but over time, things have changed, and we now have other legacy options that if you want your generations after to have safer and wealthier life, you would put in place. So quickly, Sheun, I would like you to enlighten us on the theme of this particular edition, particularly structured giving, particularly legacy planning.
Okay, thank you very much, Nnamdi. And welcome, I say my welcome to everyone. Thank you very much for taking out time to come for this event. I'll just quickly introduce the theme. So it's quite simple. That things really is about talk about estate planning, whether we talk about the Islamic perspective of things, whether we talk about giving, but the essence at the end of the day is that everyone should have a plan to have their names live after them. So you're talking about impact. Everyone in this room wants to be able to leave a good name. You know, and how do you do that? You simply organize your affairs in such a way that you're not only talking about transferring wealth to the next generation, you're also talking about ensuring that those plans that you've put in place, number one, that you have a plan in place, first of all, is very important. But then those plans that you've put in place are structured in such a way that there's no bad blood. We have so many examples. I'm sure that once we dive into this conversation, we'll have an idea of what could happen. But in essence, structured giving is an essential part of legacy planning. So I'll explain that. Mamudat, for example, has spoken about the perspective of Islam, and there's a reason why we're speaking from that, she started with that perspective, or we started from that perspective. It's simple. There's a structure in place. Islam has a very commendable structure when it comes to these kind of things that we're talking about. Giving, for example. A lot of us give, but is it structured? The giving that we're talking about, does it go, what happens after, let's say, the person who's given dies? We have so many examples of people who, once they die, their philanthropic activities end. I know, for example, of a particular hospital along Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, a health facility along Lagos-Ibadan Expressway that is in a dilapidated state, but the person built it out of a good heart, but it's there and nobody's doing anything about it. So the essence of this all is to ensure that your giving is structured and then that you leave a good name by organizing your affairs. Let me just end it that way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheung. Please, I want to still be sure that we are all carried along. And Sheung, thank you once again. A very prominent part of your answer to that question spoke to making plans. And it's a fact that you can make good plans, you can make bad plans. Not making plan is also part of making a bad plan. So you can choose not to, but we are here encouraging you to make plans that would last, that will survive generational hurdles, and that is why we're here today. Thank you very much, Sheung. So I'm now with Wemi, so we are mixing the dynamics up now. Wemi, thank you very much for joining this.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you've been with us for quite a while, and over time you've succeeded in correcting the idea that alternative citizenship is the idea, same with JAPA. Yes, the JAPA syndrome, everybody wants to run away from challenges that we are optimistic can be resolved, just a matter of time. So speaking to the same issue, we have the latest rankings. Henley and Partners also gave us a ranking where we have Nigeria as joint 91st, I think, with Sudan in the passport index. What that simply tells us is that the countries you can have access to, we were looking at Nigeria being 91st, meaning we'll have visa-free access to less countries than others that are above us on that chart. So speaking to this issue, I would like to ask you that, would you recommend obtaining alternative citizenship as a means of estate planning, and what are the benefits?
Again, thank you for having me. And good morning, everybody. So, Henley and Partners, as a company, we do a lot of research. Whatever we're saying is coming from a place of knowledge. Firstly, from our research, we find that over the next 20 years, we're expecting that at least 68 trillion US dollars is going to be transferred onto the next generation. So it's not just about moving money, but moving money properly and preparing the next generation to receive that money. And it should not end with the next generation. Your legacy must speak into the future. Now, for us, doing citizenship and residency, we see ourselves as just one spoke in the wheel of wealth management or legacy planning, so to speak. So I sit alongside my colleagues, trust services, Islamic financing, investment management, tax. We sit shoulder to shoulder, making sure that the next generation is well prepared. For us, in Nigeria, what we find when clients come to us or prospective clients come to us and we ask them, why do you want to do this? The first thing they say is, I want a better travel document. That's fair enough. Visa conditions change every day. Governments are changing every day. However, if you acquire citizenship or residency from a genuine firm, I emphasize, a genuine firm that knows what they're doing, it is for life, it is transferable onto future generations. So we're looking at health. You can access healthcare in different countries. Security, heaven forbid something happens tomorrow, you can get up and leave. We're talking about financing. You can get access to financial opportunities in other countries. So I'll talk about the Passport Power Index. That's another thing we do. And it's just gauging how much of the global GDP you can access with your current passport. So as Nigerians, Nigeria is responsible for 0.5% of global GDP. According to the index, we have visa-free access to 46 countries currently. That will only give us 1.5% of the global economy access. 1.5% as Nigerians. If I look on the other side of the fence, if I had a Maltese passport, that will give me access to 70% because I have visa-free access to 185 countries. If I had a Portuguese passport or residency, I can do business across the EU comfortably. So this is something we see as being an essential conversation, a necessary conversation. It's one of the things that we hope to educate clients and prospective clients that they need to think about. We're thinking about the future generations and how to make life easy for them and how in your twilight years to have that confidence and peace of mind that everything you have worked for will be well taken care of.
Thank you very much, Wemi, and thank you very much. I think the key thing that I want to pick out is that having alternative citizenship or passports is not necessarily the ticket to leave Nigeria forever. It's an investment that opens up other doors and access to other countries, a global view to deal in. Thank you very much. So I'll cross to this side of the conversation. And since we are looking at investments, I want to speak to the guru himself. I'm privy to a couple of structures that Olufemi has set up that have survived the test of time. And as the regional manager of the ARM Investment Managers business, Olufemi has astute knowledge to inform us today on the investment side of this conversation. So I would ask, we know there are plethora of investment opportunities out there, but because we are ARM, we are particular about the opportunities that best suit our HNI clients, opportunities that will survive all global issues, unpredictable government policies, and what have you. So please enlighten us for ARM clients what we have in stock for them for investment.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Nnamdi. I don't know about the word guru, but I'll try my best. And thank you for our guests being present, our clients here this afternoon already. It's very important to state that at ARM Investment Managers, we are a SEC-regulated entity. So it simply means that whatever we do is within the guidelines of what the regulator says, within the framework of the SEC Act, basically. It's very important to state that as a responsible asset management company, the first thing we do for our HNI clients, by HNI meaning that clients that have their net worth probably above 100 million. And so it might not necessarily be physical cash. Maybe fixed assets and the lights and all that you have in terms of assets. What we always try to do is to ask questions on what your risk appetite is. Now, if I take a survey of everyone in this room, maybe in terms of age, I could take an average of maybe, let's say 50. Maybe the lowest age here probably might be 50. I'm just assuming. So if we do that, it simply means that what you would do at your age will be different from what somebody at my age would do. Now, don't look at the white beards. I'm actually a very young man. So we look at that and then we ask questions in terms of what your risk appetite is. Of course, anybody above 50 in this room will not be advising you to do any investment, to take any investment plan or option that will be risky. So for instance, the Nigerian Stock Exchange has returned about 18.9% year to date. But the question is it permissible for Madam to actually invest in it right now? Because the truth is, she's probably retired right now, right? And as an asset and as a financial advisor, I'm advising her, Ma, just go all head in. I mean, because of the regulations that have been done recently in the banking sector, you can put all your money in GTB stocks, for instance. Hey, I might be setting out for stroke. So, as a responsible financial advisor, we definitely ask questions about your risk appetite, which would definitely differ. I mean, you could see some people at a certain age, even above 50, they still want to take a lot of risk. But it doesn't mean that you will now generalize and say everybody should also take risk. Also, it's very important to also ask about what your risk horizon is, what your time horizon is. How many years are you looking to, have this investment? Because the truth is, whatever funds you're keeping is definitely for a particular purpose. So definitely will not have what we call mismatch, meaning maybe your horizon is actually for just 1 year, and I'm telling you to invest in a bond that is maybe due to mature in 5 years. So there will be a mismatch then. Then the last question would also ask is, what is actually your investment objective? What are you looking to achieve? For somebody in this room might be, what my plan at the end of the day is to actually have a plan that would actually transit into having a trust. Okay, so because in terms of the financial life cycle, as we move on from being young, start work and all that, up to the stage where we begin to gift. At that particular stage, of course, maybe a number of people will be around 55, thereabout. At those points, of course, you're advising the client to take up a trust, or ensure that the client actually has a will in place to take care of those things. Of course, we're bedeviled by so many things going on in the country. Inflation rate at about 20.79, and global economy, at about 2.8%, and projected to be about 2.1% at the end of the year. A number of people are worried. But I can assure you that within these guidelines, these 3 guidelines that I mentioned about your risk objective, your investment objective, and time horizon, and as a responsible organization, we're able to provide you, a proper framework that will work for you. The truth is, what will work for me will not work for Inamdi. So we'll do a proper profiling, and then, look at what will work for you and eventually meet those investment goals and objectives that you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Femi. How many of us are agreeing now that Femi is a guru? So he's no more in dispute. And I know when we said it's a fireside chat, some of us will be looking out for the fire. But getting to this point of the conversation, I think we are getting heated up. So we don't need the physical fire to get the side chat effect. Something that drew out from Femi's conversation is the fact that in ARM, we offer holistic package. We're not limiting it to estate planning alone. We would consult our investment expert, we'll consult our tax expert, we'll consult our migration expert to get you a structure. So for us, it's a solution. We're not just selling products. It's a solution that profiles the age, the appetite, the resources available. For instance, what we do for someone with real estate assets will not be the same with what we do for someone with a large sum of USD and what have you. So the aim is to give you something that has integrity printed at the center of it. So we're back to Mahmudat, and I want to recount my first interaction with you. It ended up with you crowning me a sheikh. Because I was so interested in the organized nature of estate planning in Islam that I immersed myself in it, and I ever since then became interested in engaging our Muslim clients to better plan their estates. Because knowing that it's something that is even scriptural to do so, I'm better informed to quote, but not the way you would do, some Quran verses to support the position. So when we consider estate planning and legacy preservation, what is the proper practice? I know you've mentioned some tips in your presentation, but what is the proper approach? Estate planning, legacy preservation in Islam.
Thank you very much, Anam. Thank you. It's not working. It's working. Yeah. So in Islam, estate planning is scriptural, like you said, structured, and technical in terms of it's not just A, B, and C, 1/2 over 1/4, and all of that is that detailed. So if you're planning your estate, it's now about taking that proper documentation of your assets, what you own, and what your liabilities are. Have it properly documented to make things easier for the beneficiaries and those that are going to manage the assets after that. So now, if somebody dies, the estate is left to the family. And in Islam, you don't just come and say, okay, yes, in law we have this Oriojuri and Idigi system where you say, okay, one child takes this house, another child takes this house, and okay, or the Idigi system where you say, okay, how many wives are involved? We have 4 wives, okay, each wife take this, regardless of the number of children involved. Rather, it takes that equitable recognition of how that estate should be planned. What a male child will get is different from what a female child gets. What a mother gets is different from what a wife would get, and what uncle or a distant cousin would get. So it has that laid down structure of who gets what, right? And the idea behind it is, some people feel like, oh, it's not fair, that why would the man get more than the woman? Because ideally it's expected that the man takes responsibility for the family. The woman, whatever belongs to her, not to the husband, not to any other man. So the man takes responsibility and is expected to actually be responsible, regardless of the fact that we have instances where some may not be, but that is still the expectation, right? And that expectation has no exception, right? So the man takes more and expected to do more. And even in the case of liability, as we probably see in businesses, if you have to distribute the estate or distribute and there's a liability, the men, actually according to how the estate is supposed to be distributed, would definitely get more liability to their credit than the women. So it's that structured and detailed.
Well, thank you very much. And quickly, so that we expand it, it's not limited to the Islamic jurisprudence. So I'll cross over to Sheung. Is it the same case in the conventional estate planning, or are there major differences to consider?
Okay, thank you for that question. I think one of the key things that I even wanted to draw out earlier was that there are so many lessons to learn from what you have already, which is the structured one. And I'm speaking specifically to Islam, for example. As trust advisors, we learn every day, especially since we started this foray into, okay, let's study what Islam even does. So where I have to confess, in the trust industry, the people who are interested in this, who are interested in deepening the knowledge, are gradually copying from Islam in order to be able to create wholesome solutions for clients, you understand? So in the conventional, so we're going to speak legally now about law. It's simple. There are structures in place for general estate planning, but you know how it is, because we are just warming up to this concept in this area, and I mean in Nigeria, because of cultural backgrounds, a lot of differences. At the end of the day, what we want to do is deepen that knowledge, and what we are doing right now is that we are offering, as ARM, we're offering comprehensive estate planning solutions. So we take it as a journey. So, for example, if you have investments with ARM investment managers, we start from there, you understand? So we know that it's a journey, it's a lifetime journey. We know that, yes, you have that, let's say, a portfolio with ARM investment managers, but we know that at the end of the day, you have built wealth. It's a journey. You have built wealth. So there's the part where there's wealth preservation. And then we are taking you to that place where you now want to transfer that wealth. But of course, it doesn't also mean that while you're here, you're not enjoying your wealth. So we're not only talking about preservation, we're also telling you how you can grow that wealth while you're here. And then, of course, when it is time to leave, there's a plan for you to transfer it. So I'll end it by saying that, yes, the structures are similar, you understand, but we are deepening it every day, you understand? And that's why we are here. We'll deepen it further in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheon. Quickly, is there a limit to the assets that one can bequest in the conventional estate planning? Is there a limit?
No, there's no limit.
There's no limit.
There's no limit.
Over to you, Mahmudat. Is there a limit? Within the Islamic jurisprudence,
No,
is there a limit?
there's no limit.
No limit. So I can even bequest a cup of water? Never mind. Don't take that. Thank you very much, and I'm glad we are moving at a pace that gives us adequate information, and I hope we are taking down questions. I really hope we are taking down questions. Still on estate planning, sometime in 2020, I came across a study that helped me appreciate, not new, but when you come across an information that is new to you, that is the point of receiving that information. I came across an article that spoke to digital assets. Excuse me. So I became curious. Digital assets, what is digital assets? Going further, I realized that for some of us who are active on the internet, have platforms where things are even marketed and all that, it's an asset. For those of us that even have Facebook accounts, it's an asset. And on your contents you develop and all that, your cryptocurrencies and what have you, these are digital assets. So I began to ask the question, can I plan an estate along this side? My digital assets and all that. And I even learned that somewhere in Canada, there was a legal dispute over how to bequest a social media account. Really, it's that important, the passwords and all that, if one could will it and all that. So what I realized at the end of the day is that we are moving, and the idea of digital assets is real. So real that the photo you take on your phone is valuable. Is valuable, that you can even transmit it and all that, because your phone is your personal item. So let's bring it within the concept of this conversation. I know that it might be an evolving idea, but the question I have here, which I would like you to attempt and answer to, is how can individuals seeking to create wealth and preserve such wealth, especially within the digital assets space, do so in line with the Islamic jurisprudence and Islamic law?
Digital assets really is an emerging concept, and not many religious rulings on it. But the concept basically is, as long as it's an asset, it's transferable, then you can bequeath it, right? But it's now, okay, what kind of assets is it? Is it halal? Is it not permissible? So you have to look at it in the context of permissibility. Is it something that has been deemed to be halal and allowed? And you can say, okay, yes, this is a worthy asset. But once it's an asset, crypto, Bitcoin, things like that, then you can say that it's and you can transfer it, and somebody can benefit from it. Not just you transferring it, but it would be of benefit upon transfer to another person. But the concept is emerging, like I said, and more scholars would have to look into that concept and look at the details and the way it comes across. What are the intricacies involved in getting this thing, transferring it into wealth? What are the issues involved? What are the ethical principles that are involved in this concept, whatever digital or any other means of asset? But the concept still is, as long as it's transferable and it's halal, then it's bequeathable.
Thank you very much. I take comfort in knowing that even though it's not in black and white, the same doctrine covers digital assets. And I also hope that we are coming into the consciousness that every digital platform item that you might be in possession of is an asset, and we should take deliberate steps to add it to our estate plan. So when we are back at this enlightening concept, I say enlightening concept because I can't seem to get rid of the idea of Japa, and then how you came and redeemed my idea that no, it's not about Japa, it's an investment. Simply, is education still the best legacy? And also, is alternative citizenship a better legacy?
Thank you. So, we don't do Japa. We're not responsible for Japa, please. So, in Nigeria here, basically, I would say 100% of our clients are not leaving. They have made their wealth here. They are still maintaining their wealth. And we all love Nigeria. So our clients are not leaving. They have their reasons for wanting to do this. Coming back again to the better travel documents. We live in an age of globalization. Everybody has business interest beyond the shores of Nigeria. You don't want to have to go for something, but, oh, my passport is at the embassy, it's going to be there for the next 1 month, or, oh, my visa has run out, let me just quickly reapply. No one's going to wait for you. So that's where we are coming into this. Our clients do not relocate. Maybe their children relocate, maybe they don't. Maybe they go for a couple of years and come back. For our clients, our parents, their grandparents, I hear a lot, if it was just me, I wouldn't do this. But I am doing this for my children, for my grandchildren. I spend a lot of time talking about clients' children, their plans, what they see happening in their future. I speak to the clients, I speak to their children. What do you want out of your life? What do you want to do? Are you interested in the family business? Do you want to branch out and do your own thing? Do you want a couple of years to find your feet, find your passion? It's hard to find your passion if you're at the queue at the UK consulate. So having this opportunity to stand shoulder to shoulder with your peers worldwide, you have your American classmates, your UK classmates, your other African classmates, and opportunities come their way that with the Nigerian passport, unfortunately, you cannot benefit from. As parents, as grandparents, this is a major concern. You want your children, your grandchildren to step forward boldly and take up opportunities to be able to say, yes, the world is my oyster, I can do whatever I want to do. I've learned that it's really important for parents. I'm not a parent. I have parents, I have grandparents, and through this job, I have many, many, many more parents now, and big mommies and big daddies. And I spend a lot of time talking to them. And I hear, wait, the greatest thing I can do for my children is to give them options. I want them to have what I did not have. I want better for them than I had. I've been blessed and lucky, but I want even better for them. So that's where we come in. Education is another spoke in the wheel of legacy planning. So we will give the child those options they need. If you want to go to Australia for a year, work experience, you can. If you want to go to the Middle East, you can. If you want to go to Europe, you can. There's nothing stopping you. You shouldn't have to say, because I'm a Nigerian, I cannot take advantage of this scholarship. I cannot take advantage of this internship. This university is not open to me because I don't have an EU passport. On the other side of things, if we did, for example, an European residency, this is happening a lot now. Parents are looking at an European residency as, okay, it's going to give my child that extra edge in terms of being an EU resident, not an international student. Yes, it helps with school fees. They possibly will be paying EU fees, but also they will be stepping forward as an EU resident. They will not be looked at later as an international student. So these are the things that make education a big topic when it comes to residence and citizenship planning. It is not JACPA by any stretch of the imagination. We don't encourage JACPA. We love Nigeria. We absolutely adore Nigeria. And Nigeria will be great again. So, please, I encourage that if this is something that really interests you, involve your children. Children are ridiculously smart these days. I'll speak to parents sometimes and they have a plan for themselves, for their children, for the family business. And then I'll speak to the children and they also have a plan for the family business. And it's so interesting. They've not had a conversation. But agreed, where the parents and grandparents are coming from is fantastic. But with the way the world is evolving now, all opinions count. So children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren should be equipped to go forth and multiply what is being bequeathed to them. So that's where we come in.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think when I get home, I will ask my daughter if she has a plan for the family business. It will surprise you what she will say. So I want us to do a little exercise. Is alternative citizenship a better legacy? We can just give a nod or an approval or a disapproval. What do we think? We have a no nod, so we'll cross over here. Is greater, or we now have it diversifying? Is it a, we agree it is? Oh, wow. So, Amy, here we go. So, yes. So to round off, I would like us to bring in our questions, because as much as this conversation will have questions prepared, we are more particular about the questions from you, our lovely guests. So please, we'll hold on some of our questions to welcome yours. Probably someone goes round. If there are questions you want our panelists to attend to, is much more important than the one we have prepared, so that we don't say too much without attending to your own needs. So while we continue or round off, someone should go around, find out if there are questions. Our guests will be, our panelists will be very happy to take those questions. Olufemi, just quickly, I know you've given us a clear picture of what we need to consider or how we need to set up an investment plan and the basic factors we'll consider. Many of us have the curiosity. Yes, I've made great investments. How do I transmit it to the next generation? So are there tools that are available to do that, so that we look at it in that perspective?
Okay, yeah, interesting. Thank you very much, Namdi. A short story before I answer your question. I lost my mom in December last year, and then the first thing that she was telling me at the point where she was healed was, Femi, you're the one I put as the next of kin in my bank account, and you were blah blah blah. She was just telling me, and then I was smiling because most baby bloomers actually think that one way to transfer their wealth is actually to have their kids as next of kin on their bank accounts and on whatever documents and all that they have. I wish to tell you this morning that that's actually not correct. So as the next of kin, the only thing, I think my mom had an annuity plan, and the only thing the insurance company did was just to call me. I was aware, of course, that my mom had an annuity, but they just called me to say, oh, Femi, we were trying to reach your mom, we can't reach her. Is there any way you can help us get in touch with her? Then, of course, I had to tell them that my mom had passed. Okay? So that's the purpose of having a next of kin. The next of kin is just someone that the organization, your financial institution, and whoever reaches out to in case they can't reach out to you. It doesn't mean that they're just going to carry all the money that you have in your bank account and all the funds you have at ARM or at ARM pensions or your retirement savings account and just automatically just transfer it to Femi. Now, it still needs to go through a number of, probate and the likes in case if the person dies in estate. Okay, that means without a will or an estate plan. That being said, it's very important to understand that there are various tools that we use to transfer wealth from one generation to the other. Now, one of them is the one that we've spoken about so much here, is the trust, whether it's Islamic trust or probably the regular trust that all of us are aware of. And it simply just means you are transferring wealth from yourself to a trustee to manage on your behalf for named beneficiaries. So, for instance, if you have 5 kids, you're actually transferring those assets to ARM trustees to manage. Remember those set objectives that I mentioned. So ARM trustee actually understands your risk objective, they understand your time horizon, they understand your risk appetite. So they manage those assets on your behalf for named beneficiaries. Those named beneficiaries can be your children, they can be your dependents. And then they manage those assets. So in case anything happens to you, they can, because the trust is governed by a document called the trust deed. So they, based on what is written in that deed, manages those assets on your behalf. So trust is one. Now, the one that we're all very familiar with is a will. Okay? I'm not as lawyers say, they're the learned people. I'm not the learned, so I don't know. So I'm not a lawyer. But, you could write a will, and a will is also an estate planning tool to actually, state all the assets that you have and how you want those assets to be divided. But the truth is, a will only be read when the person that wrote the will is no longer, here. That's when they will open and say, oh, Femi, Mama only gave you 1 pair of shoes. And at that point, I say, yeah. So my mom only gave me 1 pair of shoes. And we've seen that also that has brought about so many, rancors in so many families and issues here and there. And there are so many other ones like the deed of gifts. For instance, I'm giving my phone as a gift to somebody, and what will back it up is actually called a deed of gift to show that was my intent. And in some other places, somebody will say power of attorney. So some of us have had to buy lands that were not in our names, and then they'll say, okay, they'll pay a power of attorney to say that you can act on behalf of that person. And I don't want to go into the nitty-gritties of the different type of power of attorneys that we have. But life insurance is also one. I know a number of us don't like to do insurance in Nigeria, but life insurance is also a way to plan your estate. And so, we can take this further, maybe after this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Quickly, before we take the questions, I would like to let us do that. Our panelists, our experts, they are not the only experts we have around. We have experts around the hall who will be available to attend to us even after this session. So please, if you're not able to pass across your questions, we are here. And for the team, we are in Abuja, at least for this week, before we attend to other regions. But we have presence here in Abuja. I'm sure most of you have been encountering our team here in Abuja. So please, it doesn't end here. And like I said in the welcome address, do something after this. Thank you very much.